Hey guys! Tonight we embark on a journey. A winding path into a past that feels almost too quiet. Too distant to be real. We're heading to a place where the rhythm of life is dictated by the sun and seasons. Not by scrolling feeds and endless notifications. Imagine the scent of wood smoke clinging to the damp evening air. The hushed rustle of leaves underfoot as your only companion. You're searching for something many of us have lost in the glare of our screens: true, deep, restorative sleep. And you've heard whispers of someone who can help: a village healer, a custodian of ancient herbal remedies. Honestly, with the kind of sleep deprivation most of us are running on, you probably won't survive this deep dive into tranquility without at least once wondering if it's all just a very vivid dream. You might even wake up feeling dangerously refreshed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It really helps the channel, and lets me know I'm on the right track with these little historical wanderings. Oh, and drop a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The path is less a path and more a suggestion. A faint rumor whispered through the gnarled roots and moss-slicked stones. You've been walking for what feels like days. Though the sun, now a bruised purple smear on the horizon, insists it's merely late afternoon. Your boots, which seemed so sturdy and reliable back in the land of paved roads and GPS, now feel like lead weights. Each step an achievement, each breath a small victory against the encroaching chill. This isn't your average weekend hike. This is a pilgrimage to the very edge of the forgotten world. Remember that brochure you saw for gentle countryside rambles? Yeah, this ain't it. This is more: test your will to live against indifferent nature. Chic. The air grows heavier, laden with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else, something subtly floral and spicy. A fragrance that promises and conceals in equal measure. It's the first real sign that you're getting closer. A fragrant breadcrumb dropped by the elusive healer you seek. You clutch the crudely drawn map a nervous villager pressed into your hand back at the last sputtering outpost of what you'd generously call civilization. Follow the river that whispers, he'd said, his eyes wide, until the trees grow teeth. Charming. You're pretty sure he meant the jagged, ancient pines that now claw at the sky on either side of you. Their branches skeletal against the fading light. Historians still argue whether these remote settlements, nestled deep in uncompromising wilderness, were established as refuges from war or persecution, for the exclusive exploitation of rare local resources, or simply due to gradual, unplanned expansion as families sought new land. Whatever the reason for its genesis, this village feels deliberately hidden, a secret cupped in the palm of these brooding hills. You wonder if the Romans, with their famously straight roads and relentless efficiency, ever even knew places like this existed. Certainly, no Via Appia leads here. This track seems to actively discourage casual tourism. In fact, there's a distinct lack of souvenir shops. What a missed opportunity. As twilight deepens, The sounds of the forest change. The cheerful chirp of daytime birds gives way to the mournful hoot of an owl. The rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. And the strange, almost melodic sigh of the wind through the dense canopy. You pull your cloak tighter. A flimsy barrier against the primal sense of being watched. It's easy to understand how tales of forest spirits and mischievous sprites were born in such places. You pass a peculiar cairn of stones, unnaturally smooth and arranged in a spiral. Local folklore, you recall from a dusty tome, suggests these are spirit traps, or markers for something much older. Much stranger than any human settlement. Some even say they pulse with a faint energy on moonless nights. A tidbit you file under things to not think about right now. The slope begins to level, and through a break in the trees, you see it, a flicker of warm, inviting light, then another, and another. The village. It's smaller than you imagined. A cluster of low-roofed cottages huddled together as if for warmth. Smoke coiling from their chimneys like sleepy, contented dragons. There are no streetlights here. No buzzing neon. Only the soft glow of tallow candles and oil lamps visible through unadorned windows. Casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar seem alien. The river that whispers is now a gentle stream gurgling nearby. Its voice a soothing counterpoint to the thumping of your own heart. You pause at the edge of the tree line, a silent observer on the threshold of this hidden world. The journey has been exhausting, a true test of endurance. Like trying to assemble flat-pack furniture armed only with a spork and existential dread. But a sense of anticipation, sharp and bright, cuts through the fatigue. You've come seeking remedies for the mind, potions for slumber, stories to soothe a restless spirit. And somewhere in that huddle of dimly lit homes, under a roof probably thatched with more history than straw, resides the healer, the keeper of secrets, the brewer of dreams. The air itself seems to hum with a quiet magic, a promise of rest you haven't felt in what seems like a lifetime. You take a deep breath, the strange, spicy floral scent stronger now. And take your first step into the village proper. The soft earth of the main track muffling your approach. The silence isn't empty, it's filled with the weight of ages. The quiet hum of lives lived in tune with rhythms you've almost forgotten exist. The village path is soft, almost like a carpet of moss and packed earth, swallowing the sound of your tired footsteps. Each cottage you pass is a silent sentinel, its windows like eyes veiled with the soft glow of inner light. There's a profound stillness here, an absence of the frantic energy that defines your world. No distant sirens, no rumble of traffic, just the occasional soft murmur from within a home, or the crackle of a nearby hearth. You find yourself walking slower, breathing deeper, as if the village itself is teaching you a new, more peaceful rhythm. That spicy floral scent, the one you noticed at the forest edge, is a little stronger here, pulling you gently forward like an invisible thread. It's your olfactory compass, leading you through the gentle labyrinth of low-slung buildings and shadowy lanes. You're not entirely sure if you're supposed to just, knock on random doors asking for the local purveyor of sleepy time potions. There's no Yelp for ancient herbalists. Unfortunately, you pass a small, open square where a communal well stands. Its stone worn smooth by countless hands over countless years. Even in the dim light, you can see the meticulous care taken in this place, no litter, no decay, just an ordered, quiet existence. The mainstream historical fact, of course, is that in communities like this, predating widespread access to formalized medical care, individuals with healing knowledge were absolutely pivotal. They weren't just tending to sniffles, they were midwives, bone setters, and counselors, the literal lifeline for village survival and well-being. Their knowledge, passed down through generations, was a precious communal resource. Ahead, one cottage seems a little different. It's set back slightly from the others. Nestled beside a gnarled, ancient-looking apple tree whose branches are festooned with what look like small, carved wooden charms glinting faintly. Bunches of dried herbs hang beside the doorway, their silhouettes stark against the faint light spilling from a window. This has to be it. The spicy floral aroma is definitely strongest here. A complex perfume of dried petals, roots, and something that reminds you of warm earth and old books. There's no doorbell, naturally, nor a quaint, "the healer is in" sign. You half expect a "beware of the mildly grumpy but ultimately helpful sage" plaque. But no such luck, just a solid, dark wooden door, its surface weathered and textured like the bark of an old tree. You hesitate for a moment, a wave of modern awkwardness washing over you. Do you knock, call out, perform a secret handshake you definitely weren't taught? This isn't like ordering a latte. There's a certain gravitas to disturbing someone who might be in the middle of, say, communing with the spirit of a particularly potent turnip. Taking a breath, you raise your hand and knock, the sound surprisingly loud in the encompassing quiet. Silence. Then, a faint shuffle from within. The scrape of a stool perhaps. The door creaks open, not all at once, but slowly, a sliver of warm, amber light widening to reveal a figure. It's the healer. You just know. They are old, though it's hard to say how old. Their face is a beautiful, intricate map of wrinkles, each line telling a story you can only guess at. Their eyes, though, are what capture you, dark and luminous, holding a depth of understanding that seems to see right through your tired facade, your carefully constructed modern composure, and straight into the restless core of you. It's not an unkind gaze, but it's certainly not one you can easily hide from. It's like they're running a quick diagnostic, assessing your soul's Wi-Fi signal. There's a serene calmness about them, and rootedness, as if they've grown out of the very earth this village is built upon. They wear simple, homespun clothes in muted, earthy tones, and a few dried sprigs of some unidentifiable herb are tucked into a leather thong tied around their wispy silver hair. You are expected, they say, their voice a low, soft rasp, like dry leaves skittering over stone. It's not a question. You manage a nod, words suddenly feeling clumsy and inadequate. I've come a long way. You manage, which feels like the understatement of the century. A faint smile touches their lips. All true seekers do. Come in. The night air grows teeth of its own. They step back, holding the door open wider. And you duck slightly to enter. The air inside is even more intensely aromatic. A rich tapestry of scents that is surprisingly comforting rather than overwhelming. It smells of history, of slow processes, of countless seasons of growth and harvest. As you step over the threshold, you notice a small, intricately woven mat of reeds just inside the door, with a few shiny, dark seeds scattered on it. You recall reading somewhere about certain folk traditions involving placing specific seeds or grains at entryways to ward off ill fortune or unwelcome spirits, a quirky, fringe tidbit of protective magic. Perhaps, or just a very old habit. The healer gestures towards a simple wooden stool near a small, gently crackling fireplace. Rest yourself. The path was not kind. Historians still argue whether the wise elder archetype in such communities primarily dispensed practical advice based on keen, lifelong observation of nature and human ailments, or if their role was more deeply intertwined with spiritual and ritualistic functions, effectively blurring the lines between healer, shaman, and community priest. Looking at this figure, radiating a quiet power that seems to emanate from both deep knowledge and something else, you can see why that debate continues. There's an aura about them that transcends the purely practical. They are clearly the gatekeeper of more than just herbal recipes. They are a guardian of an ancient, holistic understanding of well-being, where the body, mind, and spirit are inextricably linked, and where sleep is not just a biological function, but a sacred space for healing and connection. You have a feeling your journey has only just truly begun, and that your carefully itemized list of sleep-related complaints is about to meet a very different kind of diagnostic approach. You sink onto the offered stool, a wave of weariness washing over you now that you're finally still. The warmth from the small hearth seeps into your chilled bones, a welcome sensation, as your eyes adjust to the softer light, a combination of the fire glow and a couple of flickering tallow candles that cast dancing, elongated shadows. The true nature of the healer's cottage unfurls before you. It's not just a home, it's a living, breathing workshop, a veritable cathedral of botanicals. Calling it an apothecary almost feels too clinical. This is a sanctuary. A place where the boundaries between kitchen, laboratory, and sacred space are beautifully, wonderfully blurred. The air is thick with that incredible, complex aroma you noticed outside, but magnified, intensified, like stepping inside a giant, sentient potpourri factory that's been working overtime for centuries. Every available surface, every nook and cranny, seems dedicated to the storage and processing of plants. Bunches of dried herbs hang from the low, smoke-darkened rafters like botanical chandeliers, their colors muted to soft greens, dusky browns, and faded yellows. There are bundles of twigs, leaves of every imaginable shape and size, seed heads looking like miniature sculptures, and roots, gnarled and twisted, resembling ancient, sleeping creatures. They sway gently in the almost imperceptible currents of air, releasing little puffs of their unique scents, creating an ever-shifting aromatic symphony. You can pick out individual notes now, the earthy sweetness of one, the sharp tang of another, the delicate floral whisper of a third, all underpinned by that persistent, intriguing spicy fragrance you're beginning to associate with the healer themselves. Along the walls, rough-hewn wooden shelves are crammed with an astonishing array of containers. Clay pots of various sizes, some stoppered with cork or beeswax-covered cloth, sit beside glass jars, clearly rare and precious here, that catch the firelight, revealing their contents: dark liquids, powdered substances in earthy hues, and carefully layered dried flowers. There are woven baskets overflowing with mosses and lichens, and small wooden boxes, some intricately carved, others plain and utilitarian. You imagine each one holds a specific remedy, a distillation of the healer's vast knowledge. It's enough to make a particularly enthusiastic vegan rabbit weep with tears of pure, unadulterated joy. The healer moves with a quiet, unhurried grace, adding a small log to the fire. They don't speak, allowing you the silence to simply absorb the atmosphere of this extraordinary place. You watch as they take a small clay cup from a shelf, its surface worn smooth with use, and dip it into a covered water barrel in the corner. The simplicity of the gesture, the ancient rhythm of it, is mesmerizing. Your gaze drifts to a sturdy wooden table that serves as the main workspace. Here, the tools of the healer's trade are laid out with a kind of practical artistry. A large stone mortar and pestle, stained with the residue of countless grindings, sits beside a collection of knives with blades of varying shapes and sizes, their well-honed edges glinting. There are sieves made from stretched animal hide, and what looks like a primitive press for extracting oils or juices. It's a far cry from a modern laboratory, yet there's an undeniable sense of precision and purpose. The history of apothecaries is ancient, of course, records from ancient Egypt, like the Ebers papyrus dating back to around 1550 BC, list hundreds of remedies derived from plants, minerals, and animals, showing that organized pharmaceutical knowledge has been around for millennia. This little cottage feels like a direct, unbroken link to that distant past. Amongst the more recognizable tools and bundles of herbs, your eye catches on a particularly unusual object placed carefully on a high shelf, almost like a small shrine. It appears to be a large, fossilized ammonite, its perfect spiral gleaming dully in the candlelight, but nestled within its central coil is a surprisingly vibrant blue feather. Unlike any bird you've ever seen, it's a strange, almost alien juxtaposition: the ancient stone and the impossibly bright feather, a quirky tidbit that hints at a practice extending beyond simple herbalism, perhaps into realms more symbolic or talismanic. You wonder if it's for luck, for protection, or if it's an ingredient in a particularly exotic brew. Best not to ask. Probably. You try to identify some of the herbs hanging nearby, relying on your admittedly rudimentary knowledge gleaned from health food store labels and overly optimistic gardening blogs. That one, with the feathery leaves, is it yarrow? Or just a fancy weed? And those tiny purple flowers, could that be the lavender you've heard so much about for sleep? It's a humbling experience to be surrounded by such an abundance of nature's pharmacy. And to realize how little you truly know. Botanists and ethnographers continue to debate the precise identification and original intended uses of certain obscure herbs found in ancient pharmacopoeias. As historical descriptions can be vague and local names for plants vary wildly from region to region. Even village to village, the healer likely holds knowledge here that has never been written down, passed instead from mentor to apprentice through spoken word and shared experience. The sheer volume and variety are staggering. Yet there's an underlying order to the apparent chaos. Similar types of leaves seem to be grouped together. Roots are stored in darker, cooler spots, and the more delicate flowers are kept in airtight containers. It's a system honed by generations. An intuitive understanding of each plant's needs and properties. The healer turns from the fire, the clay cup now steaming gently in their hands, and offers it to you. The aroma rising from it is new, different from the general scent of the room, something subtle, slightly sweet, and deeply calming. This, you sense, is where the true magic begins. You take the offered clay cup, its warmth seeping gratefully into your chilled fingers. The steam rising from it carries a delicate, apple-like fragrance, sweet and surprisingly clean amidst the more complex earthy and spicy notes dominating the cottage air. It's a gentle aroma, unassuming yet instantly comforting. You hold it for a moment, cradling the warmth, your gaze meeting the healer's. Their eyes, those ancient, knowing pools, seem to hold a quiet encouragement. This simple cup, offered in this rustic sanctuary, suddenly feels incredibly precious, perhaps worth more than all the gold in Fort Knox. Or at least, in your current deprived state, a reliable high-speed internet connection. Drink, the healer murmurs, their voice like the rustle of dry leaves. It will ease the road from your bones and quiet the chatter in your mind. You nod and bring the cup to your lips. The first sip is a revelation. It's mild, slightly sweet, with that distinct fruity note you smelled earlier. And a clean, almost silky texture. It's nothing like the bitter, often disappointing herbal concoctions you've occasionally tried back home. The ones that usually taste like sad, boiled lawn clippings. This is different. This tastes of sunshine, of gentle fields, and of an undeniable, quiet care. As the warm liquid slides down your throat, you feel a subtle loosening in your shoulders, a softening around the edges of your fatigue-frayed nerves. It's not a dramatic, drug-like effect, but a gentle unfurling, like a clenched fist slowly relaxing. This is lovely, you manage, surprised at the sincerity in your own voice. What is it? A faint smile touches the healer's lips. They gesture towards a cluster of small, daisy-like flowers with bright yellow centers and delicate white petals, drying in a shallow basket not far from the hearth. It is chamomile, they say, a humble flower, but one of the oldest friends to those who seek rest. You peer at the blossoms. They look so ordinary, so cheerful and unassuming. It's hard to believe such a simple-looking plant could hold such profound soothing power. The healer watches you, their expression unreadable, perhaps sensing your silent skepticism or your burgeoning curiosity. Many overlook the power in common things. They continue, their voice soft and steady. Chamomile grows freely in meadows and along pathways. She offers her gifts generously. She does not shout for attention, but her whisper is potent for those who learn to listen. The healer picks up one of the dried flower heads, holding it out on their palm. See her? Like a tiny sun, radiating calm. For generations, we have gathered these blossoms as the summer sun reaches its peak, drying them carefully to preserve their gentle spirit. Indeed, the use of chamomile for its calming and medicinal properties is ancient. The Egyptians, for instance, revered it so highly they dedicated it to their sun god, Ra, not just for its sun-like appearance but for its ability to cure agues and fevers. The Greeks and Romans also extensively documented its use for various ailments. From digestive upsets to insomnia, it's a plant that has woven itself into the fabric of traditional medicine across countless cultures and centuries. It is a balm for a troubled stomach. The healer explains, their gaze distant, as if seeing beyond the cottage walls to the fields where the chamomile grows. A comfort for a fretful child, and for the weary traveler. Like yourself, it coaxes the restless spirit towards the quiet shores of sleep. They describe how the flowers are best picked on a dry, sunny morning, how they must be laid out carefully, away from direct, harsh sunlight, so they retain their volatile oils, the very essence of their power. You take another sip of the tea, the warmth spreading further, a gentle tide of peace. You can almost imagine that tiny sun, the chamomile flower, radiating its calm within you. It's a far cry from the harsh blue light of your phone screen, your usual pre-sleep companion. You idly wonder if chamomile tea would work on a particularly hyperactive squirrel you once saw in a park. Or perhaps on your boss during a stressful quarterly review. Probably a question for another time. The healer then shares a little piece of local lore, a quirky tidbit that makes you smile. In the old tongue, some call chamomile the plant's physician, they say. A twinkle in their eye. It is said that if a plant in the garden is wilting or sickly, planting chamomile nearby will help it recover. Such is its generous, healing nature, it helps not only us, but its fellow green things too. You picture a tiny chamomile flower in a white coat, making its rounds in a garden hospital, offering gentle diagnoses to droopy roses and listless ferns. As you finish the tea, a comfortable silence settles between you. The initial intensity of the cottage's many aromas seems to have softened. Or perhaps you've just acclimated, cocooned now in a fragrant, warm embrace. The chamomile has undeniably worked some subtle magic. The sharp edges of your anxiety have been smoothed. And a pleasant drowsiness, the kind you haven't felt naturally in ages, begins to tug at your consciousness. Modern science, you muse aloud, more to yourself than the healer, though they listen patiently, has identified compounds like apigenin in chamomile, which apparently binds to certain receptors in the brain, similar to how some anti-anxiety medications work. It's a clumsy attempt to bridge your world with theirs, to connect the ancient wisdom with contemporary understanding. but researchers still debate the full spectrum of its active constituents and precisely how they synergistically contribute to its anxiolytic and sedative effects. There's still so much to learn about even the most common plants. The healer nods slowly. The plant offers its whole self. The earth, the sun, the rain, the air, all are part of its medicine. To break it into pieces is to understand only a shadow of its truth. The soothing is not just in one part, but in the spirit of the whole. Their words resonate, a simple yet profound observation. You look down at the empty cup, feeling a sense of quiet gratitude. The journey was long, the path uncertain, but this first encounter, this simple offering of chamomile tea, feels like a significant arrival. It's a gentle kiss from the ancient world, a promise of the deeper slumber you came here to find. The gatekeeper has offered you the first key. The gentle embrace of the chamomile tea has settled over you like a soft, warm blanket. Your eyelids feel pleasantly heavy, and the cacophony of thoughts that usually races through your mind before sleep has quieted to a mere whisper. It's a novel sensation, this precursor to genuine rest, so different from the exhausted collapse you usually experience. The healer observes you for a moment, a faint, knowing look in their deep-set eyes. They seem to understand the subtle shift in your energy, the first tendrils of peace taking root. The chamomile opens the first gate. The healer says softly, their voice blending with the crackle of the fire. It coaxes the body to remember stillness. But sometimes, the mind needs a different kind of persuasion, a more aromatic key to unlock the deeper chambers of tranquility. As they speak, they rise with that surprising agility you're beginning to notice in them, and move towards a different section of the cottage, where darker, more densely packed bundles of herbs hang. From one of these, they carefully detach a few long, slender stalks crowned with tight clusters of small, purplish-gray florets. Even from across the small room, a new fragrance begins to weave its way into the existing tapestry of scents, a perfume that is instantly recognizable, deeply familiar, yet somehow more potent, more authentic here in its heartland than any synthetic version you've ever encountered. It's lavender. The healer brings the stalks over to you, holding them out, the breath of the purple fields. They murmur, lavender. Its scent alone is a lullaby. You lean closer, inhaling deeply. The fragrance is clean, floral, with a slightly camphoraceous undertone that is both invigorating and profoundly calming. It's a scent that conjures images of vast, sun-drenched fields under a brilliant blue sky, of buzzing bees and a gentle, warm breeze. Your bedroom back home, you reflect with a slight internal grimace. Probably smells more of old takeout containers and the faint, metallic tang of sleep-deprived desperation. This, however, this is the real deal. The healer watches your reaction. For centuries, this has been the scent of peace, of clean linens, and of untroubled sleep. Its very name, some say, comes from the ancient word for washing. And indeed, the name lavender is widely believed to derive from the Latin word lavare, meaning to wash, because the Romans frequently used lavender to scent their baths, beds, clothes, and even their hair. They valued it for its fragrance and its perceived cleansing properties. A tradition that has carried through millennia. We use it in many ways. The healer continues, gently rubbing one of the flower heads between their thumb and forefinger, releasing an even more intense burst of aroma. Not just as a tea. Though a mild infusion can soothe a restless head, we place dried sprigs among our sleeping clothes. Tuck small sachets into pillows. The aroma itself works on the spirit, entangling the knots of worry that keep slumber at bay. They gesture to a small, intricately stitched linen pouch sitting on a nearby shelf, no doubt filled with the fragrant purple buds. It seems lavender is so perennially popular. It finds its way into everything these days, from luxury bath bombs to artisanal dog biscuits. You're half surprised you haven't seen lavender-infused Wi-Fi routers yet. You recall seeing pictures of lavender farms, the endless rows of vibrant purple. You even idly thought about trying to grow some on your own balcony once. A plan that, knowing your horticultural track record, would have undoubtedly resulted in a collection of sad, gray twigs of disappointment and a lingering scent of failure. Here, in the hands of the healer, it seems to pulse with a quiet vitality, even in its dried form. Lavender is also a guardian. The healer adds, their voice taking on a slightly more mystical tone. They hold up one of the stalks, its purple head like a tiny, potent scepter. It is said that its presence can ward off melancholy and protect the sleeper from unwelcome shadows. This aligns with some of the more obscure folklore you've stumbled upon. Quirky tidbits about lavender being worn on the person to avert the evil eye, or its inclusion as a key ingredient in the famous Four Thieves vinegar, a concoction believed to protect grave robbers from contracting the plague as they went about their grim business. Whether true or not, the association with protection adds another layer to its soothing reputation. While many studies support lavender's calming effects, particularly when its scent is inhaled through aromatherapy, you offer, thinking of the countless lavender-scented candles and oils marketed for relaxation. Scientists are still exploring the precise olfactory pathways and neurochemical responses involved. They debate whether its efficacy is consistent across different preparations, oil, dried flower, tea, and how much individual sensitivities or even expectations play a role in its perceived benefits. The healer nods. Considering your words, the mind is a powerful current. If it believes in the path to stillness, the plant can guide it more easily. But lavender's gift is not solely in the believing. Its essence truly does whisper to the agitated parts of the soul. They take one of the lavender stalks and, with a deft movement, tuck it into a small loop on the leather thong that ties back their hair. The purple a stark, beautiful contrast to their silver strands. It clears the air, both around us and within us. You find yourself breathing more deeply again, the lavender mingling with the lingering sweetness of the chamomile in your system. It's a potent combination, a 1-2 punch of botanical calm. The initial drowsiness induced by the chamomile is now overlaid with a sense of serene clarity from the lavender. It's not so much a heavy sedation as a gentle parting of the mental clouds, allowing a peaceful quiet to settle. The idea of sleep, which often feels like a battle to be won, now seems like a welcoming harbor, easy to drift into. The healer has shown you two potent allies already. Two humble plants holding centuries of soothing wisdom within their unassuming forms. You wonder what other secrets this fragrant sanctuary, and its enigmatic keeper, still hold. The combined effect of the chamomile's gentle kiss and lavender's purple haze has cocooned you in a remarkable state of calm. Your mind, usually a frantic beehive of activity, feels more like a softly humming, well-ordered library where all the books are peacefully asleep on their shelves. The healer nods, a subtle affirmation of the herb's work, their gaze still holding that unnerving clarity. These are kind friends, they say, gesturing to the remnants of the lavender stalks you still hold, their fragrance a comforting presence. Chamomile coaxes, lavender soothes, they prepare the way, smooth the path, but sometimes, the roots of restlessness run deeper. Sometimes, a stronger hand is needed to draw the curtains on a troubled mind and bid it enter the true dark of restorative slumber. With these words, they turn towards a shadowed corner of the apothecary, a section you hadn't paid much attention to before. Here, the herbs seem darker, more gnarled, the containers more robust, almost fortress-like. From a tightly sealed earthenware crock, tucked away on a low shelf as if guarding ancient secrets, the healer retrieves a handful of what looks like dried, tangled roots. They are unprepossessing, a nondescript brownish-gray, twisted into dense clumps. As they bring them closer, a new scent begins to permeate the air, starkly different from the delicate florals and sweet apple notes you've grown accustomed to. This aroma is potent, earthy, yes, but with an added pungency that is surprisingly intense. A musky, almost cheesy odor. If chamomile is a gentle whisper and lavender a soothing song, this is a forceful, slightly off-key baritone. It smells, if you're being brutally honest with yourself, rather like a gym sock that's seen better millennia and perhaps had a complicated relationship with a very old piece of cheese. This, the healer announces, holding out the fibrous tangle with a certain reverence, is valerian, the root of deep slumber. You try not to wrinkle your nose, but it's a challenge. Your polite, "Oh, lovely," probably sounds about as convincing as a politician's promise. The healer, however, seems unfazed, perhaps used to such reactions. Its aroma is not for pleasing the frivolous senses. They state, a hint of dry amusement in their tone. Valerian speaks not to the nose, but to the very core of our being, to the part of us that yearns for oblivion when the world becomes too loud. They explain that valerian is not a casual acquaintance among herbs. It is a powerful ally, to be treated with respect and used with discernment. This is not for a mind merely flustered by the day's small anxieties. The healer says, their voice a low rumble, this is for the nights when sleep is a distant shore, seemingly unreachable, for when counting sheep just leads you down a rabbit hole of existential angst about ovine consciousness and the fleeting nature of wool. Valerian guides the spirit down into the earth, into the quiet dark where true rest is found. The history of valerian as a sedative is indeed long and well documented. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, described its therapeutic properties way back in ancient Greece, and Galen, a prominent Roman physician, later prescribed it specifically for insomnia. Its reputation as a potent sleep aid has persisted through the ages, a testament to its efficacy. Smell notwithstanding, the healer begins to describe its preparation, often as a tincture, steeping the dried roots in alcohol or vinegar for many weeks to draw out its potent compounds, or as a strong, rather unpalatable tea. The taste, like its scent, is a challenge, they admit, but the peace it brings is its own reward. One whiff of this stuff, you think, and you might just be convinced to hibernate until April, which, considering your current to-do list, sounds dangerously appealing. Then, a peculiar expression crosses the healer's face, a flicker of something almost mischievous. It holds a strange magic. This root, they confide, lowering their voice slightly, cats, as you may know them, are drawn to it as if by an irresistible enchantment. Much like they are to the plant you call catnip. They will roll in it, purr with abandon, sometimes even become quite frenzied with delight. Why this is, we do not fully know. Perhaps they sense its deep connection to the hidden energies of the earth. It's a bizarre and amusing image, fierce felines losing their cool over this pungent root. You also vaguely recall a fringe theory, a quirky tidbit from some forgotten documentary, suggesting that the Pied Piper of Hamelin might have used valerian, or a similar plant with compounds attractive to rodents, to lure the rats from the town. The idea of its scent having such a powerful, almost magnetic pull on certain creatures is certainly intriguing. You watch as the healer carefully places a small piece of the root into a stone mortar. Their movements deliberate, while modern inquiries have identified substances like valerianic acid and other valepatriates as key active compounds in valerian. They continue, as if plucking the thoughts directly from your more scientifically inclined musings. Scientists still debate their precise mechanisms of action on the GABA receptors in the brain. There is much discussion on whether the synergy of multiple constituents, including some perhaps yet to be fully understood or appreciated by your methods, is essential for its full sedative effect, as our traditional preparations always utilize the whole root, not just isolated parts. They don't begin to grind it. Not yet. It feels more like an introduction, a formal presentation of a powerful entity. The presence of the valerian root has shifted the atmosphere in the cottage. The gentle, dreamy quality induced by the chamomile and lavender is now underscored by a more profound, earthy gravity. This is serious slumber medicine. The healer seems to sense your unspoken awe, and perhaps your lingering olfactory shock. It is not for every night, nor for every soul, they conclude, carefully returning the main bundle of roots to its secure crock. But when the deepest peace is sought, valerian offers its strong, grounding embrace. The subtle implication is that your current state, while improved, might yet benefit from such a profound intervention. Perhaps later. For now, the introduction serves as a reminder of the depth and range of the healer's herbal arsenal. From the gentle caress of a flower to the uncompromising power of a root. The lingering, pungent ghost of the valerian root still hangs faintly in the air, a reminder of nature's more formidable pharmacopoeia. You're still wrapped in the gentle afterglow of chamomile and lavender, a state of relaxed alertness that feels both new and incredibly ancient. The healer, having returned the potent valerian to its resting place, seems to decide that a demonstration of their craft is in order. Perhaps to solidify the lessons. Or maybe just because the rhythm of brewing is as natural to them as breathing. The knowing of the herbs is one part, they say, their gaze sweeping over the crowded shelves of their apothecary. The listening to what is needed is another. And the bringing them together, that is the heart of the art. They don't consult a recipe book. Of course, there are no stained, handwritten cards tucked away, no ancient equivalent of a well-loved cookbook. Their knowledge is clearly ingrained, intuitive. They move with a quiet purpose, selecting a few dried leaves from one bundle, a pinch of tiny, star-shaped flowers from a clay jar, a small sliver of a pale, fragrant bark from another. You recognize the soft, feathery fronds of chamomile, and a hint of lavender's familiar purple. But the other ingredients are new to you. Their scents subtle and intriguing. They handle these botanicals with a reverence that is captivating. They treat each leaf, each petal, with more care and focused attention than you probably dedicate to your own delicate ego on a fraught Monday morning. With the chosen ingredients assembled on the worn wooden table, the healer takes up the stone mortar and pestle you noticed earlier. They don't just dump everything in. First, they select a few of the tougher leaves and the piece of bark, placing them gently into the bowl of the mortar. The rhythmic thud and grind begins. A soft, percussive sound that seems to blend with the crackling of the hearth and the distant sigh of the wind outside. It's a slow, deliberate process. There's no rush, no sense of urgency. Each movement is precise, economical, honed by countless repetitions. This is a far cry from your usual tea-making ritual, which generally involves sticking a generic tea bag in a random mug, nuking it in the microwave until it's scalding, and then promptly forgetting about it until it's tragically lukewarm. As they grind, the aromas begin to meld, releasing a new, complex fragrance, warmer than the chamomile, less intensely floral than the lavender alone, with a faint, sweet, woody undertone from the bark. The healer leans in occasionally, inhaling deeply, as if assessing the blend not just by sight or measure, but by its evolving aromatic signature. Once the coarser ingredients are sufficiently bruised and broken, they add the more delicate flowers, stirring them in gently with the pestle rather than crushing them. Meanwhile, water has been heating in a small, soot-blackened kettle suspended over the fire. The healer seems to know by instinct when it has reached the perfect temperature, not boiling furiously, but steaming with a gentle insistence. They carefully pour the hot water over the herb mixture in a simple clay pot, the steam billowing up, carrying the rich scent throughout the small cottage. You watch, mesmerized by the focused intent. There's a ritualistic quality to their actions that transcends mere domestic chore. This careful, mindful process is reminiscent of ancient practices like the Japanese tea ceremony. Cha no yu, where every gesture, Every element from the choice of utensils to the whisking of the tea is imbued with mindfulness, respect, and a deep appreciation for the aesthetic experience. It's about finding beauty and tranquility in a simple, everyday act. The healer covers the pot with a small wooden lid and lets it steep. An interval of quiet anticipation. During this time, they do something rather peculiar. They take a thin, smooth wooden stick, perhaps a specially chosen twig, and very slowly, almost imperceptibly, stir the air above the steeping pot. 3 times, always in a sunwise, or diocil, direction. They don't touch the pot itself, just the steam and the air around it. It's a tiny, almost throwaway gesture, yet performed with such solemnity. This quirky little ritual, you surmise, is one of those ingrained traditions, perhaps meant to imbue the potion with positive energy, to guide the spirits of the plants, or simply a habit passed down through generations. Its original meaning lost but its practice faithfully maintained. The plants offer their bodies. The healer says softly, as if sensing your unspoken question about the silent stirring. We offer our intention. The water binds them. The fire awakens them. It is a covenant. You nod, beginning to understand that this is more than just folk medicine. It's a holistic practice where belief, intention, and the ritual of preparation are as crucial as the pharmacological properties of the herbs themselves. Medical anthropologists and psychologists continue to debate the extent to which the perceived efficacy of traditional remedies is attributable to the pharmacological actions of their ingredients versus the psychological impact of the healing ritual itself. The caregiver's focused attention, the soothing environment, the patient's belief system, all contributing to what is often dismissed as the placebo effect. Or perhaps more accurately, the meaning response. Watching the healer, you can see how the two are inextricably intertwined. The care itself is a powerful medicine. Finally, with the same unhurried grace, the healer deems the infusion ready. They take 2 simple clay cups, the one you used earlier, now rinsed, and another for themselves. They strain the tea through a fine mesh of woven grasses. The resulting liquid a beautiful amber hue, darker than the chamomile, richer. The aroma is complex and deeply comforting. If you tried to replicate this at home, you'd probably end up setting off the smoke alarm, flooding the kitchen, or accidentally summoning a minor, and likely quite disgruntled, deity of lukewarm beverages. They hand you a cup, a blend for easing into the deeper currents of night. They explain, to quiet the lingering echoes of the day and prepare the soul for dreams. You accept it gratefully, the warmth once again a welcome sensation. The brewing ritual, with its quiet focus and mindful actions, has been almost as soothing as the herbs themselves. It's a lesson in slowing down, in paying attention, in finding the sacred in the simple act of making tea. You hold the warm clay cup, the amber liquid inside radiating a complex, soothing aroma, a blend of the familiar chamomile and lavender, but deepened by that sweet, woody note of bark and the intriguing whisper of other, unknown botanicals. Each sip seems to unwind another tightly coiled spring within you, the day's accumulated tension dissolving into the fragrant steam. The healer watches you, their gaze soft in the firelight, then nods towards the door. The mother of these gifts is the earth, they say, their voice a low murmur. And she reveals different secrets under the moon's gaze than she does under the sun's. Come, let us walk in the night garden for a moment. Some remedies prefer the quiet dark to yield their fullest strength. The idea of venturing out again into the night, which earlier felt like a slightly daunting prospect on the edge of the wild forest, now seems inviting, intriguing. You follow the healer as they unlatch the heavy wooden door. Stepping outside, the air is noticeably cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth, night-blooming flowers, and the distant, clean smell of pine from the surrounding woods. The moon, nearly full, hangs like a silver disk in the inky sky, casting long, ethereal shadows and bathing the small clearing in a soft, luminous glow. The familiar village sounds are muted here. Just behind the cottage, the gentle chirp of crickets, the occasional far-off hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves in a barely there breeze. It's a world away from the bright, noisy city nights you're used to. The healer's garden isn't the neat, regimented affair you might expect. It's not a collection of tidy rows and perfectly pruned specimens. Instead, it's a beautiful, rambling sanctuary that blends almost seamlessly with the wilder landscape beyond. It's less country living magazine's idea of a picturesque cottage garden and more secret meeting spot for particularly wise and benevolent gnomes. Plants of all shapes and sizes grow in what seems like a chaotic yet harmonious community. Silvery-leafed herbs gleam in the moonlight, their foliage almost glowing, while taller plants cast feathery shadows that dance with your movements. Paths, barely visible, wind between dense clumps of foliage, and the air is alive with a chorus of nocturnal fragrances. Many of the plants we use for sleep and dreams are shy creatures of the night. The healer explains, their voice barely disturbing the stillness. They point towards a patch of tall, elegant flowers with large, white, trumpet-shaped blossoms that seem to unfurl before your very eyes, releasing a heady, sweet perfume into the cool air. Moonflowers. They wait for the sun to depart before sharing their beauty and their scent. Their essence, captured carefully, can help guide the spirit through the veils of dreaming. You walk slowly, carefully, trying not to disturb the sleeping, or perhaps very awake, inhabitants of this magical space. Your own attempts at gardening usually resulted in attracting more existential despair and a thriving population of indifferent snails than actual healthy growth. This place, however, pulses with a quiet, confident vitality. The healer moves with an innate familiarity, brushing past leaves, bending to touch a flowerhead, their connection to this nocturnal world palpable. They stop beside a low-growing plant with delicate, pale yellow flowers that also seem to glow faintly. And this evening primrose. Her blooms open as dusk falls and her seeds yield an oil that soothes and nourishes from within. She reminds us that some healing can only begin when the day's striving is done. Historically, dedicated medicinal gardens, often called physic gardens, were meticulously cultivated in monasteries throughout the Middle Ages. These gardens were vital centers for preserving and developing herbal knowledge. where monks grew and studied plants for their healing properties, including those that might be gathered or were most potent at specific times. Day or night, this moonlit space feels like a direct descendant of those ancient centers of learning, albeit a wilder, more intuitive iteration. The healer then mentions something that piques your modern curiosity. We gather many of these night bloomers, or herbs intended for deep rest, according to the moon's phases. They say, gazing up at the luminous orb, planting, tending, harvesting, all are guided by her cycle. The old ones knew that the moon's pull influences the waters of the earth, and thus the waters within the plants, concentrating their virtues at certain times. This, you realize, is the core of what some call moon gardening, or biodynamic agriculture, a practice often dismissed by mainstream science, yet stubbornly persistent in many traditional cultures. It's a quirky, fringe tidbit that adds another layer of mystique to the healer's art, suggesting a connection to cosmic rhythms you've never considered. You can't help but wonder what these plants are up to, out here in the quiet dark. What are they discussing amongst themselves? Probably complaining about the declining quality of modern moonlight, or swapping the latest gossip from the slug community. It's a whimsical thought, but then the healer says something that resonates with it. While the concept of plant neurobiology is still considered controversial in some of your modern circles, the healer remarks, as if sensing your thoughts drifting towards the secret life of plants. Scientists are actively researching how plants perceive and respond to their environment. They are discovering complex intercellular communication, ways they react to sound, to touch, even to the presence of other beings. This leads many, even in your world, to debate whether our understanding of plant sentience, their inner lives, is still very much in its infancy. The air in the garden is thick with unspoken stories, with the silent, potent energy of growing things. The tea in your hand, born from this very earth, feels like a communion. You see a small, feathery herb with tiny, star-like silver flowers, and the healer identifies it as silver-misted mugwort, saying it is often used to encourage vivid dreams and protect the dreamer on their journeys. Another, a dark-leafed plant with an almost metallic sheen in the moonlight, is pointed out as a key ingredient for dispelling nightmares. Its name whispered too softly for you to quite catch. Each plant seems to have its own personality, its own specific gift for the realm of night and slumber. This moonlit tour is not just a lesson in botany. It's an immersion into a world where the veil between the mundane and the magical is beautifully thin. You find yourselves back inside the healer's cottage, the door latched against the deeper chill of the night. The moonlit garden, with its softly glowing flowers and mysterious shadows, already feels like a half-remembered dream. You're settled once more on the stool by the hearth, the embers now glowing a deep, pulsating red, casting a warm, intimate light that makes the bundled herbs hanging from the rafters look like sleeping sentinels. The clay cup, still holding the dregs of that wonderfully complex tea, rests in your hands, its warmth a comforting anchor. The blend of chamomile, lavender, and those other, more mysterious botanicals has woven a tapestry of profound calm through your being. You feel wonderfully, exquisitely sleepy, yet your mind is also strangely clear, receptive. The healer sits opposite you, their silhouette softened by the fireglow, their eyes holding a distant, reflective quality. They seem to be gathering threads from the vast, unseen loom of memory. The herbs themselves hold power. They begin, their voice barely more than a whisper. Yet each word is crystal clear in the quiet room. But their stories unlock different chambers within us. They are the maps to the medicine, the keys to understanding not just how, but why. And so, as the fire sighs and the shadows dance, the healer begins to share some of the tales woven into the very fabric of the sleep potions they create. This isn't like the storytelling you're used to, which often involves endlessly scrolling through social media feeds trying to piece together a narrative from fragmented posts, or attempting to decipher the cryptic hieroglyphs of IKEA assembly instructions. This is ancient, a direct line to a time when stories were the lifeblood of culture. The vessels of wisdom. They tell you about the silver-misted mugwort you saw in the garden. The one with the tiny, star-like flowers. According to a very old legend in these parts, the first sprig of this herb was a gift from the moon herself, dropped onto a desolate battlefield where a lone, heartbroken soldier lay, unable to find solace in sleep due to his grief and the haunting faces of the fallen. The moon, taking pity, sent this herb so that his dreams might become a safe passage to meet his lost comrades one last time, to say farewell and find peace. And so, mugwort became known as the dream weaver's friend, used not just to induce sleep, but to make the journey through dreams clearer, more meaningful, and sometimes, to offer protection from the shadows that can lurk in those liminal spaces. This particular tale is so beautifully rendered, so poignant, you almost feel you might need another potion just to calm down from the gentle emotional resonance. Never mind the suspense. The vital role of such oral storytelling traditions in pre-literate societies for transmitting essential knowledge, cultural values, and collective history is, of course, well documented by historians. Think of the great epic poems of Homer, which were recited and passed down for generations before being written, or the incredibly rich and complex oral traditions of indigenous peoples across the globe, which encapsulate entire worldviews, scientific observations, and spiritual laws within their narratives. These stories were the encyclopedias, the textbooks, and the spiritual guides of their time. The healer then points to a small, unassuming bundle of dried, feathery leaves you hadn't noticed before. This is wild lettuce, they say, sometimes called sleep's gentle rain. There is a quaint belief amongst some of the more isolated hill folk. They share a smile touching their lips, your quirky tidbit for the night, that if you are troubled by a persistent worry that keeps sleep at bay, you must go out just before dusk, find a patch of wild lettuce, and whisper your specific worry to its leaves. Then, when it is harvested under the last sliver of the old moon and brewed into a tea, it will carry that worry away with it, dissolving it into the dream stream so it troubles you no more. It's a charming idea, personifying the plant as a confessor and a reliever of burdens. They speak of how some remedies were discovered by watching animals, how a bear, after being wounded, might seek out a particular root to chew, or how birds line their nests with specific aromatic leaves that seem to keep parasites at bay. These observations, passed down and refined over centuries, became part of the healer's ancestral knowledge. One story tells of a shepherd who noticed his usually restless flock became incredibly calm and sleepy after grazing in a meadow dotted with a particular small blue flower. Curious, he tried an infusion of the flower himself, and discovered its profound ability to soothe an agitated mind. That flower, the healer explains, is a distant cousin to the borage plant, still used today to lift the spirits and encourage gentle repose. As you listen, your eyelids growing heavier, your own brain starting to feel like a well-intentioned sieve that's just had a bit too much artisanal tea poured into it. You realize these stories are not mere entertainment. They are mnemonic devices, teaching tools that embed crucial information about identification, preparation, dosage, and even potential dangers in a memorable and culturally resonant form. Folklorists and cultural historians continue to debate the extent to which traditional plant lore reflects empirical observation and genuine therapeutic properties that were discovered through trial and error, versus purely symbolic associations or the layering of elaborate mythological narratives onto the natural world. Perhaps, you think, it's always a blend of both, the practical wisdom dressed in the beautiful, memorable garments of myth. The healer's voice becomes softer still, almost a lullaby itself. They speak of a particular valley, hidden deep within the oldest part of the forest, where the rarest sleep herbs are said to grow, guarded by ancient spirits of the wood. Only those with a pure heart and a true need, the story goes, can find their way to this valley, and only if they approach with respect and offer a song or a story in return for the plants they gather. It's a tale that emphasizes the sacredness of the exchange, the idea that healing plants are not just commodities to be taken, but gifts to be received with gratitude and reciprocity. The last story drifts into your consciousness as you teeter on the very edge of sleep. It's about a simple village woman who learned to brew a tea from 7 different flowers, each representing a different quality of rest, one for peace, one for quiet, one for deep dreams, one for letting go, one for healing, one for gratitude, and one for gentle waking. The secret of which 7 flowers, and in what proportion, was her most treasured possession. As the healer lists these qualities, their voice weaving a soft cocoon of sound around you, you feel yourself beginning to float, the tales and the tea merging into a profoundly soothing current, carrying you gently towards the waiting shores of deep, untroubled slumber. The healer's voice, weaving those soft, ancient tales, had become the very current carrying you towards the shores of slumber. You were drifting, deliciously untethered, images from the stories mingling with the scent of wood smoke and drying herbs. You were so close to dreamland yourself. In fact, you nearly offered whoever might next appear your half-empty cup of tea and some profoundly unsolicited advice about the surprising efficacy of counting imaginary, fluffy alpacas, just as you were about to tip over the edge into full unconsciousness. A soft but insistent rapping at the cottage door pulls you gently back. Your eyes flutter open. The fire has burned lower, casting the room in even deeper, softer shadows. The healer, who had seemed almost part of the dreaming landscape a moment before, is now fully alert, their head tilted, listening. They rise with that characteristic quiet grace and move to the door. You remain on your stool, a silent, sleepy observer, wrapped in the lingering warmth and the fragrant peace of the apothecary. The door creaks open to reveal a figure silhouetted against the faint moonlight, a villager. A man judging by his build, though his face is obscured by shadow and the weariness that seems to cling to him like a heavy cloak. He looks like he's recently wrestled a particularly tenacious badger for his last decent night's sleep. And the badger, it appears, won by a technical knockout. Healer. The man's voice is rough, strained. Forgive my lateness, but I cannot bear another night like the last. The healer steps aside, gesturing for him to enter. There is no lateness when need calls. Thomas, come in by the fire. The villager shuffles in, and as he turns towards the hearth, the flickering light illuminates a face etched with exhaustion and anxiety. Dark circles ring his eyes. His skin is pallid, and his movements are agitated, his hands constantly clenching and unclenching. He glances at you briefly, a flicker of surprise, but the healer's calm presence seems to reassure him that your presence is unremarkable. It is the sleeplessness again. Friend Thomas? The healer asks gently, their voice a soothing balm in itself. The healer, meanwhile, in the face of this palpable distress, looks as unruffled as a Zen master who's just been informed his favorite meditation cushion is on indefinite backorder. Thomas nods, his shoulders slumping. Worse than ever. I lie down, and my mind, it races like a trapped bird. Thoughts fly at me from all corners. I hear every creak of the house, every rustle of leaf outside. I see the first light of dawn, and I have not known a moment's peace. My body aches with tiredness, but my mind will not yield. He pauses, looking helplessly at the healer. My wife fears I am sickening. My work in the fields suffers. I am undone. Sleeplessness, or insomnia as it's more clinically known, is hardly a modern affliction. Historical records from various cultures show that people have struggled with it for millennia. In medieval Europe, for example, the causes of such persistent wakefulness were often attributed to a wide range of factors. From the physical, like an imbalance of the bodily humors or chronic pain, to the spiritual, such as guilt, divine punishment, or even demonic influence, treatments were equally varied, encompassing herbal remedies, dietary changes, prayer, and sometimes more esoteric rituals. The healer listens with profound patience, their gaze never leaving Thomas's face. They don't interrupt, don't offer quick solutions. They simply hold the space for his distress, allowing him to unburden himself. When Thomas finally falls silent, his story told, the healer nods slowly. The mind is a swift river. Thomas, they say softly, when it is flooded with worry, it overflows its banks and drowns the fields of sleep. Tell me, what are the currents that feed this flood? Are there new troubles at home? Fresh anxieties about the harvest? Has your diet changed? The healer's questions are gentle, probing not just the symptoms but the potential roots of Thomas's affliction. This is the holistic approach you're beginning to recognize, seeing the person not as a collection of isolated ailments, but as a whole being, interconnected with their environment, their emotions, their daily life. Thomas speaks of a lingering cough his youngest child has, of a fence that needs mending before his animals stray, of the dry spell and its threat to the crops. Small worries, perhaps, but they accumulate, building a dam against the natural flow of rest. The healer considers his words, their eyes thoughtful. They might glance towards a specific jar of herbs, or touch a particular bundle hanging nearby, as if consulting with the plants themselves. Medical historians and paleopathologists still debate how accurately we can diagnose specific sleep disorders like chronic insomnia or anxiety-related sleeplessness in past populations based purely on textual accounts or even skeletal evidence. Subjective experiences of sleep, cultural interpretations of what constituted normal sleep, and the language used to describe sleep disturbances varied so greatly across time and cultures, making retrospective diagnosis a complex puzzle. After a period of quiet contemplation, the healer speaks. The Valerian would offer a heavy cloak. Thomas, perhaps too heavy for now. First, we will try to coax the river back to its course, not dam it entirely. They then mention a traditional, somewhat quirky folk remedy from the region. Have you tried placing a smooth, gray river stone, one that has been warmed by the sun and then cooled under the evening sky, beneath your pillow? Some find its connection to the earth and the water helps to ground the racing thoughts. Thomas shakes his head, a glimmer of desperation still in his eyes, but perhaps a tiny spark of hope too. The healer then rises and moves to their array of herbs. You watch as they select a few, some chamomile, certainly, a touch of lavender, but also some sprigs from a plant you don't recognize. With small, heart-shaped leaves, they explain to Thomas that this is lemon balm, a gentle herb known for gladdening the heart and calming agitated nerves. Often used when worry is the thief of sleep. They also add a pinch of hop flowers, explaining their well-known sedative qualities. Often used by brewers but also treasured by herbalists for their ability to lull the restless. The brewing ritual begins anew, similar to the one you witnessed earlier, but perhaps with an even greater sense of focused intention, tailored now to this specific, urgent need. The healer's movements are calm and reassuring, a silent promise of relief. They murmur softly as they crush the herbs. Not a chant exactly, but a low, continuous stream of comforting sounds. Perhaps words of encouragement to the plants, or to Thomas himself, as the tea steeps. Its fragrance, a comforting blend of citrus, floral notes, and a slightly bitter, green aroma from the hops, fills the cottage. The healer speaks to Thomas in a low, soothing voice, offering not just the potion, but also simple advice, to try and walk for a short while before bed, to listen to the night sounds not as enemies but as companions, to breathe slowly and deeply, When the tea is ready, they pour a cup for Thomas, who accepts it with visibly trembling hands. He drinks it slowly, the healer watching with that same quiet, unwavering attentiveness. You see a subtle shift in his posture, a slight easing of the tension in his shoulders as the warmth and the herbal essence begin their work. The immediate crisis of his sleeplessness is being met, not with a blunt instrument, but with a carefully crafted, multi-layered approach that addresses mind, body, and spirit. The path to slumber for Thomas, it seems, will be paved with more than just herbs. It will involve the gentle, persistent care of this wise village healer. Thomas, the weary villager, eventually departs, clutching a small pouch of the freshly blended herbs and a cup of the potent, calming tea. There's a visible easing in his posture, a slight slackening of the tension around his eyes. He offers his heartfelt thanks, his voice thick with emotion, and then slips out into the pre-dawn quiet, a solitary figure seeking solace. You watch him go, the encounter leaving a poignant imprint on your own sleepy consciousness. The healer closes the door softly, the latch clicking with a gentle finality, and the profound stillness of the cottage settles around you once more. The fire is mostly embers now, a deep, pulsing heart of warmth in the dim room. Sleep is the gateway, the healer says, turning back to you, their voice a low murmur that seems to resonate with the ancient wood of the cottage itself. But dreams, dreams are the lands beyond that gate. And just as there are herbs to help us find the gateway, there are others to guide our journeys within those lands. You lean forward, intrigued despite the late hour and your own profound desire for your pillow. Your own dreams, when you can remember them, usually involve a frustrating search for a functioning public toilet in some bizarre, Escher-like landscape, or the classic anxiety dream of your teeth inexplicably falling out. The idea that dreams could be intentionally navigated, or even influenced, is a fascinating one. The healer gestures again to the silver-misted mugwort, its feathery, moon-kissed fronds seeming almost to glow in your memory of the night garden. We spoke of this one, the dream weaver's friend. They say, mugwort not only clears the path to vivid dreams but is also said to help the dreamer remember what they have seen upon waking. For what is the use of a message if it vanishes with the morning mist? They explain that traditionally, small pillows filled with mugwort and other aromatic herbs like hops and lavender were placed near the head to encourage restful and meaningful dreams. But their lore goes deeper than just pleasant dreams. The healer speaks of other, less common plants, some of which you didn't see in the garden, perhaps gathered from more hidden, wilder places. There's talk of an herb called star ladder, a climbing vine with flowers that only open to the darkest night sky, believed to help the dreamer's spirit ascend to gain wisdom from the ancestral realms. Another, a root known only by a whispered name that sounds like shadowbinder, is used with extreme caution, said to allow the dreamer to confront and understand their deepest fears, transforming them from haunting specters into sources of strength. It sounds like you'd need a PhD in subconscious symbolism and a very brave therapist on speed dial just to process a night with that particular brew. This deep connection with the world of dreams is hardly unique to this small village. Dream interpretation, for instance, was a highly developed practice in many great ancient civilizations. The ancient Egyptians possessed detailed dream books, and professional dream interpreters, the masters of the secret things, held esteemed positions. Similarly, in ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were considered omens or messages from the gods, requiring careful analysis. The Greeks, too, famously practiced dream incubation at the temples of Asclepius, the god of healing, where supplicants would sleep in sacred precincts hoping for a divine dream that would provide a cure for their ailments. The healer shares a particularly quirky piece of local folklore regarding a rare, water-loving plant with tiny, almost invisible blue flowers that blooms only for a few hours during the summer solstice. It is said, the healer confides, their eyes glinting in the dim light, that if one is pure of heart and manages to find this flower and place a single petal under their tongue before sleeping on that magical night, they will understand the language of the animals and the whispers of the wind in their dreams, and gain profound insights into the interconnectedness of all things. You can't help but smile at the sheer poetry of it. Even if finding an invisible blue flower that blooms for 3 hours a year sounds like a botanical scavenger hunt designed by a particularly mischievous nature spirit. They explain that in their tradition, dreams are not merely random firings of a tired brain. They are a vital part of life, a space for healing, for learning, for receiving guidance, and sometimes, for confronting what is hidden. The herbs are our allies in this. The healer says, some clarify the dream site. Others protect the dreamer from straying into shadowed paths. Some help us to carry a question into the dream and find its answer there. You ponder asking if there's an herb that could help you dream the location of your perpetually lost car keys. But decide that might be trivializing the sacred. Of course, the fundamental purpose and psychological function of dreaming remains a subject of vibrant discussion even today. Psychologists, neuroscientists, and anthropologists continue to debate whether dreams are primarily for memory consolidation, sorting the day's experiences, for emotional regulation, helping us process feelings, for threat simulation, allowing us to practice responses to danger in a safe environment, or if they are simply a byproduct of random neural activity during REM sleep. And beyond these functions, there's the ongoing question of whether dreams hold deeper symbolic meanings that are culturally universal, as some psychoanalysts proposed, or if their significance is intensely personal and shaped by individual experience. The healer doesn't engage in these modern debates. Their knowledge rooted in a different kind of understanding, one passed down through lived experience and ancestral wisdom. They speak of dream teas, prepared with specific intentions, perhaps a blend to seek guidance on a difficult decision, or one to promote healing dreams after an illness or loss. The choice of herbs, the way they are gathered and prepared, the mindset of the dreamer, all are considered vital. It's a far more active and engaged approach to dreaming than the passive reception you're used to. The night, in this tradition, is not just a void between days, but a rich and potent landscape for the soul's quiet work, with herbs acting as faithful guides and guardians through its mysterious terrain. The fire has now dwindled to a soft, orange glow, and the healer's words, like the herbs themselves, seem to steep in the quiet air, infusing your sleepy mind with ancient wonder. The fire in the hearth has dwindled to a soft, hypnotic orange glow, its warmth now a gentle sigh rather than an assertive presence. Outside, the deep night feels vast and silent, the kind of profound stillness that often precedes the deepest, coldest hours. You are cocooned in the healer's small cottage, a sanctuary of herbal aromas and ancient wisdom, teetering on the very brink of sleep yourself, the lure of dreams still echoing softly in your mind. The healer, sensing the shift in the night's energy, stirs slightly, their gaze turning towards the embers. The wheel of the year turns. They muse, their voice as soft as falling snow. And as the light changes, so too does our need for rest, and the nature of the sleep that restores us. Winter asks for a different kind of slumber. You can almost feel the imaginary chill of a deep winter settling around the cottage. Even though the actual season might be far off, the healer speaks of the long nights, the biting winds, the world outside hushed under a blanket of snow. In such times, they explain, sleep is not just a nightly reset, it's a deeper dive, a more profound retreat into the body's own warmth and the spirit's quiet resilience. My usual winter survival kit, you think wryly, involves an electric blanket set to Inferno and an unhealthy, codependent relationship with at least 3 different streaming service subscriptions. Their approach seems a tad more elemental. In the dark months, the healer continues, we call upon the herbs that carry the sun's fire within them, those that can warm the blood and comfort the soul when the world outside is cold and barren. They gesture towards some of the darker, spicier-smelling bundles hanging in the shadows, dried ginger root, curled sticks of cinnamon bark, and the tiny, nail-like buds of cloves. These are not just for flavoring winter stews, though they are good for that too. A touch of ginger in a nighttime brew can soothe a restless stomach chilled by the damp air. Cinnamon warms from the inside out, like a gentle hearth within your own chest. And cloves hold a fiery spark that can drive out the deepest chill and quiet a cough that might otherwise shatter the night's peace. They explain how these warming spices are often blended with the gentler sleep herbs, like chamomile or linden flower, to create potions that both calm the mind and deeply warm the body, encouraging a restorative hibernation rather than a fitful, shivering doze. Honestly, the whole sleep soundly through the bleakest part of winter plan that bears seem to have perfected sounds more and more appealing with each passing year. The healer also speaks of herbs to lift the spirits during the long, gray days. While they don't use modern terminology, their description of a particular winter melancholy that can settle upon some folk, a weariness of spirit, a desire to do nothing but sleep, a dimming of inner light, sounds remarkably like what contemporary society labels seasonal affective disorder. While the concept of seasonal affective disorder, SAD, is a relatively modern diagnosis. You recall, Historians and medical anthropologists debate whether similar syndromes of winter melancholy or lethargy were recognized and specifically treated in historical periods, and how cultural interpretations of these profound seasonal mood changes might have varied across different societies. The healer mentions a bright, yellow-flowered plant, carefully dried and stored from the summer months, which they use sparingly in winter teas to bring back a little sunshine to the heart. Perhaps it's a local variety of St. John's wort, or something similar, known through ages of observation for its subtle ability to elevate mood. Of course, the historical reality for many communities was that winter was an incredibly challenging period, marked by potential food scarcity, extreme cold, and increased isolation. Survival often depended on careful planning, including effective food preservation techniques like drying, salting, smoking, and fermenting summer's bounty, as well as communal support and resource sharing. The healer's knowledge of preserving summer herbs, drying them meticulously in the shade, storing them in airtight clay pots or tightly woven baskets, is a crucial part of ensuring a continuous supply of remedies through these lean months. The healer shares a charming, quirky folk belief related to winter sleep. In the deepest cold of midwinter, they say, a faint smile playing on their lips. Some of the old families here still practice the ritual of the worry stone. They take a smooth, flat river stone, heat it gently by the fire, and wrap it in a cloth sprinkled with dried lavender and hops. This warmed stone is then tucked into the bed. It is said that the physical warmth draws out the body's aches, while the stone itself absorbs any lingering anxieties or bad dreams that the long winter nights might conjure, leaving the sleeper in peace until morning. It's a lovely image, a simple, tangible comfort against the vast darkness. They also describe how the very nature of the sleep potions might change. While summer brews might be light and floral, winter versions become richer, perhaps incorporating nourishing elements like honey, or infused into warm milk or a hearty broth. The goal is not just to induce sleep, but to deeply nurture and sustain the body through its period of rest, fortifying it against the harshness of the season. You imagine trying to find some of these specific winter herbs or preparations in a brightly lit 21st century supermarket. You'd probably just find some rather sad-looking, commercially produced cinnamon sticks and a lot of very confused shelf-stacking staff if you asked for star ladder root or oil of evening primrose. Moon harvested, of course. The conversation turns, briefly, to the dreams of winter. The healer suggests they are different too, often more introspective, sometimes taking the dreamer to deep, quiet places, like caves or underwater worlds, symbolic of the Earth's own slumber. Herbs like valerian, used with care, might be called upon more frequently if the winter brings a particularly deep disquiet that gentler remedies cannot touch. As the healer speaks, the last of the fire's visible glow surrenders to ash. The cottage is now almost entirely dark, save for the faintest hint of moonlight filtering through the small window. The chill you imagined earlier feels a little more real now, and you instinctively pull your cloak tighter. The comforting weight of all the herbal lore, the stories, the gentle presence of the healer, and the potions you've consumed are lulling you into an almost irresistible state of drowsiness. Winter's quiet comforts, it seems, are not just about specific herbs, but about a whole way of being, of conserving energy, seeking warmth, and finding solace in the deep, restorative dark. A soft, diffused light gradually seeps into your awareness, the kind that filters through a small, east-facing window on a quiet morning. You stir, feeling an incredible sense of refreshment, as if you've slept for a week, your body and mind deeply rested in a way you haven't experienced in years. The lingering scent of wood smoke and a complex bouquet of dried herbs tells you instantly that you're still in the healer's cottage. You're lying on a surprisingly comfortable pallet of soft furs and woven rushes near the now cold hearth. A rough-spun blanket tucked around you. The healer, it seems, had quietly ensured your comfort after you finally succumbed to the irresistible pull of sleep. Your own apprenticeship in the fine art of adulting still feels very much in its early, often bewildered, stages, but you have a newfound appreciation for true mastery in any form. You sit up slowly, taking in the quiet activity of the cottage in the morning light. The healer is already awake, of course, moving with that same unhurried grace you've come to admire. But they are not alone. A young girl, perhaps 10 or 12 years of age, with bright, curious eyes and dark hair tied back neatly with a simple leather thong, is with them. She's small for her age but moves with a quiet confidence, her attention utterly focused on the task at hand, carefully sorting through a shallow basket of freshly picked leaves. Her small fingers deft and surprisingly gentle. This must be the apprentice you'd glimpsed hints of, the next link in the long, unbroken chain of this ancient knowledge. There's no formal classroom setting here, no textbooks or lectures. The learning is clearly immersive, woven into the fabric of daily tasks. The healer doesn't so much instruct as guide, occasionally pausing beside the girl, picking up a leaf, murmuring a quiet observation about its color, its texture, the way its veins run. See how this one, the lemon balm, holds the morning dew in its tiny hairs, the healer says. Their voice soft, it drinks the light, that is part of its gift for lifting a shadowed heart. The girl nods, her gaze serious, absorbing every word, every nuance. She's handling those delicate dried leaves with more intense focus than you've likely ever managed to apply to a tax return or assembling flat-pack furniture. The system of apprenticeship, of course, was the cornerstone of education and skill transmission for centuries, long before formal schools and universities became widespread. From the medieval guilds where a young boy would spend years learning a craft like blacksmithing or masonry, to the transmission of traditional medicine where knowledge was passed directly from master to student through observation, practice, and oral instruction. This immersive, hands-on approach ensured that complex skills and subtle wisdom were preserved and passed down through generations. You watch as the healer hands the girl a small, gnarled root, valerian, by its distinctive, earthy, and yes, still slightly jim-sake, aroma that even you can now identify from a short distance. Now, tell me, child, The healer asks gently, "For what ailment would we call upon this strong spirit? And with what care must it be handled?" The girl looks at the root intently, then up at the healer. "For a sleep that is deeply troubled." "Healer," she recites, her voice clear but soft, "when the mind is a storm and will not be stilled by gentler rains. And it must be used with great respect, only a little at a time, for its strength is profound and can overwhelm if not measured rightly." The healer nods, a rare, approving smile touching their lips. It's clear this is not a rote memorization, but an understood truth. The healer's teaching style is less Kibashi sensei, the stern, demanding teacher archetype, and more like a deeply patient Gandalf cross-pollinated with a very intuitive gardening instructor. There's a quiet rhythm to their interactions. The apprentice grinds some herbs in a smaller mortar and pestle, her movements mirroring the healer's own deliberate, careful motions you observed the night before. She asks a question about identifying two similar-looking dried flowers, and the healer explains the subtle differences in their scent profile when bruised. The almost imperceptible variation in petal shape. It's a slow, organic process of learning, built on repetition, sensory engagement, and a deep, abiding respect for both the teacher and the potent botanicals they work with. The healer then mentions, almost as an aside to you, but clearly for the apprentice's benefit too, a quirky old tradition from their own training. "When my master was considering taking me as a student," they say, their eyes distant with memory, "one of the final tests was the silent gathering. I was sent into the forest at dusk with an empty basket and told to return by dawn with 7 specific herbs, none of which were named aloud. I had to find them using only my intuition, the feel of their leaves in the near dark, their scent on the night air, and the whisper of their spirit. It was not just a test of knowledge, but of connection." The young apprentice's eyes widen slightly at this, a mixture of awe and perhaps a little trepidation at what her own path might entail. This intimate, direct way of passing on such a vast and nuanced body of knowledge is both beautiful and, in the context of your modern world, incredibly fragile. Ethnobotanists and anthropologists continue to debate the most effective and ethical ways to preserve traditional ecological and medicinal knowledge, particularly as globalization and cultural shifts threaten these ancient practices. There's a significant discussion around whether documentation, digitization, and academic study can adequately capture the subtleties and spiritual depth lost when oral transmission and direct, immersive apprenticeship systems like this one decline, or if these modern methods, in some cases, even risk decontextualizing, oversimplifying, or exploiting sacred or communally held knowledge. Later, the healer allows the apprentice to prepare a simple infusion of chamomile for you. Under their watchful eye, you see the girl carefully measure the dried flowers, her brow furrowed in concentration as she recalls the healer's instructions about the right amount of water, the correct steeping time. She presents the cup to you with a shy pride, and you accept it with genuine gratitude. It tastes just as lovely as the chamomile the healer prepared, a testament to the careful teaching and the student's earnest efforts. The torch is indeed being passed, not in a grand, dramatic ceremony, but in these quiet, everyday moments of shared work, whispered wisdom, and the patient cultivation of a deep, intuitive understanding. It's a slow burn, this transfer of knowledge, ensuring that the light of this ancient practice continues to illuminate the path to well-being for generations to come. One carefully chosen herb, one mindfully brewed potion, at a time. The next day, or perhaps it's even a few days later, time in the village flows with a gentle, unhurried current that makes your usual clock-watching habits seem absurd. You notice a subtle shift in the atmosphere. There's a quiet hum of activity, a sense of pleasant anticipation that wasn't there before. People are moving with a little more purpose, but still with that characteristic village calm. You see small groups gathering in the central green, children weaving garlands of late-season flowers and silvery herbs, and the air carries the scent of baking bread and simmering broths. Richer and more complex than the usual daily fare. My main skill so far, you reflect, seems to be expert-level observation of other people diligently working, which, you could argue, is also a form of deeply restful, participatory activity. So, you're basically contributing, the healer, with the young apprentice always a few steps away, observant and eager, seems to be a gentle focal point for some of this activity. Villagers approach them with questions, offering baskets of freshly gathered ingredients, or seeking a quiet word of advice. It's clear something special is afoot. It is the eve of the slumber feast. The healer explains to you later, as you sit with them for a moment, sharing a simple midday meal of warm bread and a mild cheese. The apprentice is carefully grinding a large quantity of what you now recognize as hops. Their fragrant, slightly bitter dust rising in a pale green cloud. Once a year, as the nights grow longer and the earth prepares for its deep rest, we too honor the sanctity of sleep. It is a time to give thanks for the quiet dark, for the healing that comes in dreams, and to prepare our spirits for the restorative stillness of the coming season. Now this, you think, is the kind of festival I can truly get behind, one where taking a nap is not just acceptable but practically a sacred obligation. The preparations are fascinating to watch. There are no garish decorations or loud music. Instead, the aesthetic is one of natural simplicity and tranquility. Soft, woven hangings, dyed with subtle plant-based colors, muted blues, lavenders, and deep forest greens, appear on cottage doors. Intricate, dream-catcher-like weavings made from willow branches and adorned with feathers and dried seed pods are hung from the eaves of houses. Children, surprisingly quiet and focused, help to arrange smooth river stones and sprigs of calming herbs like chamomile and lemon balm into beautiful, temporary mandalas on the village green. Communal feasting is, of course, a central part of many traditional festivals across the globe. Historically, seasonal celebrations, such as those marking solstices, equinoxes, or harvest times like the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain or the grain harvest celebration of Lammas, were absolutely crucial for social cohesion. These events served to mark the passage of time, allow communities to give thanks for nature's bounty, share resources, reinforce collective identity, and ensure communal well-being through shared rituals, storytelling, and feasting. The slumber feast feels like a unique, beautifully focused iteration of this ancient human impulse. You observe the healer and the apprentice overseeing the preparation of a large cauldron of what appears to be a communal sleep tea. The quantities of herbs being added are prodigious, basketfuls of chamomile flowers, heaps of lavender, generous handfuls of linden blossoms, valerian root, used judiciously, yew note, and several other botanicals you vaguely recognize from your time in the apothecary and the moonlit garden. The aroma rising from the gently steaming cauldron is incredibly potent, a symphony of soothing scents that promises profound peace. Hopefully, you muse, the feast itself won't just be endless bowls of valerian-flavored gruel. Though at this point, you're so thoroughly steeped in tranquility, you'd probably find it gourmet. One of the most intriguing local customs you witness is the ritual of released worries. Later in the afternoon, as the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, the villagers gather quietly. Each person, including the children, is given a small, dried, hollow gourd and a piece of charcoal. They are encouraged to think of any anxieties, fears, or troubles that might be disturbing their rest. They then symbolically place these worries into the gourd, either by whispering them into the opening or by making a small mark on its surface. Afterwards, in a quiet procession led by the healer, the villagers walk to the edge of the whispering river. There, one by one, they gently release their worry gourds into the current, watching as they float away, carrying the symbolic burdens downstream, out of sight, out of mind. It's a powerful and poignant act of collective catharsis, a tangible way of letting go. As dusk settles, soft lights from candles and shielded lanterns begin to glow around the village green. The feast itself is comprised of simple, nourishing foods known for their calming properties: slow-cooked root vegetable stews, hearty grain breads, baked apples with honey and cinnamon, and of course, copious amounts of the specially brewed slumber tea, served warm in handmade clay cups. There's a gentle murmur of conversation, soft laughter, and the occasional sharing of a quiet story or song. It's not a festival of wild revelry, but of deep, communal comfort and serene joy. Sociologists and anthropologists continue to explore the primary social functions of such communal festivals and rituals. There's ongoing debate about whether they serve mainly to reinforce social solidarity and shared values, to act as a safety valve for social tensions, to ensure collective efficacy in relation to the environment and the supernatural, or if their psychological benefits for individual participants, such as stress reduction, emotional release, and fostering a profound sense of belonging, are perhaps the most paramount aspect of their enduring appeal across cultures. Watching the faces of the villagers, bathed in the soft light, their expressions relaxed and open, you suspect it's a potent blend of all these things. The healer, with the apprentice by their side, who looks both immensely proud and slightly overwhelmed by the responsibility of helping to ladle out the precious slumber tea, moves among the people, offering a kind word here, a shared smile there. They are not just the village herbalist. They are a custodian of its well-being, a weaver of its communal peace. And as the night deepens, and the effects of the food, the tea, and the shared tranquility begin to take hold, a profound sense of drowsiness settles over the entire village. One by one, families begin to drift back to their cottages, ready to embrace the deep, restorative sleep that this unique festival has so beautifully cultivated. The morning after the slumber feast dawns crisp and clear, the air washed clean by the deep, collective rest the village has embraced. A profound tranquility lingers, thicker than the morning mist slowly burning off the nearby hills. You feel it in your bones. A quiet hum of peace that resonates with the gentle rhythms of this secluded haven. Your time here, however long or short it has actually been, for time itself seems to have stretched and softened, is drawing to a close. The path that led you here, once a daunting track through the wilderness, now feels like a distant memory, overshadowed by the warmth and wisdom you've found. You share a final, simple breakfast with the healer and the young apprentice. The conversation is sparse, comfortable. There's an understanding that your journey must continue, that the insights gained here are meant to be carried back into your own world, not hoarded in this idyllic isolation. When you try to explain this experience to your friends back home, they'll probably just nod politely and then secretly suspect you've joined a very chill, exceptionally well-rested, herb-obsessed cult. And maybe, in a way, you have, a cult of quiet, of listening, of finding medicine in the earth and peace in simplicity. The healer, as if sensing your thoughts of departure, nods slowly. The path that brought you here will lead you away, they say, their voice gentle. But what you have found within yourself, the quiet spaces, the ability to listen to the whispers of your own body, the knowledge that even common plants hold profound gifts, these things travel with you. They are not bound by place. Then, with a soft smile, they present you with a carefully wrapped bundle, your parting wisdom's brew. It's a small pouch made of finely woven linen, tied with a leather thong, and it emanates a complex, comforting aroma, a blend for your journey. The healer explains, some chamomile for calm, a touch of lavender for peace, a little lemon balm to keep your spirits bright, and a pinch of rosemary for remembrance, that you may not forget the quiet strength you've rediscovered here. The apprentice watches, a proud little smile on her face, as if she had a hand in selecting or preparing this special gift for you. Your luggage on the return trip, you realize, is going to be an interesting mix. Half of it will be muddy boots and well-worn clothes. The other half an assortment of suspiciously fragrant leafy bundles and a profound sense of calm. This act of preparing and gifting herbal remedies is part of a tradition that stretches back into the deepest mists of time. Herbal medicine is, without a doubt, one of the oldest forms of healthcare, with practices and knowledge systems developed across virtually all cultures throughout human history. It's a remarkable continuity of wisdom. Many modern pharmaceuticals, the stalwarts of contemporary medicine, actually have their origins in plant compounds that were first discovered, utilized, and understood within these traditional herbal frameworks. Think of aspirin from willow bark. or the heart medication digitalis derived from the foxglove plant. The healer's simple pouch is a direct link to that vast, ancient pharmacopoeia. As you prepare to leave, the young apprentice shyly approaches you. She holds out a single, smooth, dark gray stone, small enough to fit comfortably in your palm. From the whispering river, she says softly. The healer says it holds the peace of the water, to keep in your pocket, for when the world outside feels too loud. This touching gesture, this quirky tidbit of parting magic, feels incredibly precious. It's like the local custom some isolated communities have of giving a departing guest a memory seed from a significant local plant, to be planted in their own garden, with the belief that as the seed grows, their connection to the place and its lessons will also continue to flourish and deepen. This stone feels like such a seed, a tangible piece of the village's soul. You thank them both, words feeling inadequate to express the gratitude you feel for their hospitality, their wisdom, and the profound sense of peace they've shared. The healer simply nods, their eyes holding that familiar, deep understanding. Go well, they say, and remember to listen to the plants. They always have something to teach. As you stand on the threshold of the cottage, ready to retrace your steps back to a world that now feels both distant and clamorous, you ponder the future of such ancient wisdom. There is, of course, ongoing debate and intensive research among medical professionals, pharmacologists, ethicists, and policymakers across the globe regarding the optimal ways to integrate traditional and complementary medicine, like the herbalism you've witnessed here, with modern allopathic healthcare systems. The challenge lies in balancing deep respect for this ancient wisdom and these rich cultural practices with the equally important need for rigorous scientific validation, safety standards, and ethical considerations to prevent exploitation or misrepresentation. It's a complex conversation, but the deep, intuitive truth of what you've experienced here feels undeniable. You take one last look around the apothecary, at the bundles of herbs hanging like ancient tapestries, at the worn tools, at the quiet intensity of the apprentice's gaze as she watches the healer. You try to imprint the feeling of this place, its scent, its profound stillness, onto your memory. You know it will be a challenge to maintain this newfound level of Zen when you're thrust back into the maelstrom of modern life. Good luck trying to find your inner moonlit herb garden during peak hour traffic or while navigating a crowded supermarket aisle. But you carry something new within you now, a quiet confidence, a few precious tools, and the enduring echo of the healer's wisdom. The path ahead might be noisy, but you now know where to find the silence within. And so, with the river stone cool and smooth in your pocket and the fragrant pouch of herbs safely stowed, you turn from that haven of tranquility, stepping back onto the path that will lead you onwards. The air is fresh, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, and the sounds of the awakening forest are a gentle accompaniment to your thoughts. The journey ahead is still long, but it feels different now, imbued with a quiet purpose, a gentle understanding. The sun climbs higher, its warmth on your shoulders a benevolent farewell from this hidden valley. The lessons of the healer, the soothing whispers of the herbs, the deep, Restorative slumber you found. These are now part of you, woven into the fabric of your being. You carry not just remedies, but a remembrance of a slower, more intentional way of living, a connection to the ancient pulse of the earth. Let this sense of peace settle deep within you now, a soft, warm ember glowing steadily in your heart. Allow the rhythmic cadence of your own breath to become a gentle lullaby, easing you further and further into a state of profound relaxation. The path fades, the forest recedes, and all that remains is this deep, comfortable stillness, this perfect moment of surrender. There is nothing left to do, nowhere left to go, but to drift peacefully, easily, into the soft embrace of healing, restorative sleep, sweet dreams.